On to the Sunday divisional round games we go now, which start at 8 o'clock from Foxborough as the Texans travel to take on the Patriots. We'll be live this Sunday from Gracco Studios, where we had great fun with our Red Zone watch-along, our first ever Red Zone watch-along just a couple of Sundays ago. We're there to cover this Texans-Pats game. Myself, Shane and Brian will be in studio in all our glory. You'll be able to see even more of us than you can see right now in that very professional setup. We're really looking forward to that, and we'll be looking at our Sunday best for that game. Texans Patriots 3.5 points favourites in this one, Kieran. Texans looked pretty good taking out the Steelers just on Monday night, so slightly shorter rest for them in this one. Patriots equally taking out the Chargers, look lean and mean defensively. That was a bit of a slugfest in comparison to some of the other games we saw over wildcard weekend. I'm not going to weigh in just yet, but I found this one genuinely the toughest one to call of the entire weekend.
Yeah, and this is the other one that I got Craig working for his money. Just before we came on air, I flipped on my pick originally. I originally had
International House of Pancakes over here. He's flipping all day long.
I originally had picked the Texans here because, again, a team coming off such an impressive and an emphatic performance against the Steelers, and a Patriots team that to be fair, struggled to get over the Chargers, who really couldn't get anything going on offense, but they still managed to get at the Patriots and cause them.
Have we lost him? Is it because I moved?
Yeah, you moved. You must have knocked out the whole Wi-Fi connection to Cork just when he was getting in full flow.
You've got this app. Sorry, did I disappear for a second there, did I?
We lost you there. You were like Cork in the second half of the hurling final. You disappeared.
Apologies. So you've got this Texans defense. Anderson and Hunter getting all the attention, all the credit, and Stingley Jr. They're going to be absolutely all over the pitch, trying to get at the Patriots offense. They're going to try and funnel them up the middle. That's that's what they did against the Steelers. They're going to the Patriots like to run Henderson around the corner. They're going to try and just keep it simple up the middle and get after them. The reason I doubted myself and the reason I flipped in the end, it's because of what the Patriots actually managed to do on defense and what they managed to do to the Chargers offense in the end, because they were not a vaunted rush defense. And the reason I gave the Chargers a chance last week is because the Patriots traditionally didn't have that kind of a pass rush that should have caused huge amount of problems. And they did. I mean, they had like Justin Herbert couldn't throw the ball. I mean, he couldn't get time to throw the ball last week. And CJ Stroud just hasn't been as dependable as he was in the first, in his first season, in his rookie season. And Drake Maye is an MVP candidate. He may well end up being the MVP. And from what we've seen throughout the season, when it comes down,
I heard your friend in mine, Jordan Rodrigue, talking earlier about cold weather and quarterbacks with small hands. Like, there is a direct correlation between the amount of fumbling that you see. Just something to bear in mind as CJ Stroud travels to New England. Not one of the taller quarterbacks in the NFL. Doesn't have the big mitts.
And when you look back at the few moments that were in it, the few moments of inexplicable kind of decision making on Stroud's behalf against the Steelers, I mean, they coughed up the ball enough times to the Steelers that the Steelers, if they had anything going on offense, they should have been punished a lot more. No credit to the to the defense. They went out and won it for them. But I just do feel like Drake Maye, he gets a lot of stick off the back of the fact that they haven't beaten, the strength of schedule and everything like that. But what you've seen, he's passed the eye test all through the season in terms of when he's had to run, he's been able to scramble a la Josh Allen. When he's had to throw the ball with touch down the field with power, he's been Rodgers-like at times. I think he is the real deal. I think he is the X factor. I think they're going to have more on offense. And while it might be a low-scoring game, I do think that he's the guy that can get them over the line. So I do have the Patriots getting over the line, but just on the Texans front, I mean, the Texans are a funny team because they came into the season and they let us forget about them in the first half of the season because we were all talking about the Colts and how they were dominating the league surprisingly and dominating their division. And then it became about the Jags in the second half of the season while this Texans were going on an absolutely outrageous run on defense and putting together one of the all-time seasons. I've heard them be compared with, all the greats, the Broncos of 2015, Legion of Boom, the Ravens, in 2000s, you can go all the way back. All these vaunted defenses, they're right up there, but they weren't really getting the hype. And like we kind of tend to forget, and we've allowed ourselves to forget that the Texans won a playoff game last year. They won a playoff game the year before. In any other franchise, and I'm hearing it in Texan circles now, they want more now. It's this isn't a house money as we call it. It's not. This isn't they're not coming
house money as I don't call it, and you well know I don't like house money.
They're not coming in here saying let's have a crack at it. We're in bonus territory or whatever you want to call it. They've been here. This is their third year in a row. And if they can't get over the line against the Patriots team, that is a new Patriots team. This isn't Belichick and Brady. This is Drake May and Mike Vrabel in their first year. So the Texans should expect to win, and they should fancy their chances. And if they don't win, there is going to be frustration in Houston. But I just have the Patriots disappointing them and nicking them. And I think it's because in the back of my mind, I don't want to see like a 3-0 win in the AFC Championship when the Broncos and Texans meet.
Yeah, I eventually landed there, having shocked myself because I was leaning Texans all week, making the case for the Texans, thinking defense, to your point, is just so good. Like, I mean, you look at their secondary in particular, and never mind the pass rushing where they've got those twin towers in Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter. Never mind the linebacking core, which is among the most switched on side to side effective cores in the league, but you look across the secondary and it's hard to know who's the best player. Like, we were raving about Derek Stingley Jr., who may be the best cornerback in the NFL, but, Lassiter stands out. Petrie stands out. Bullock, guy who got the game-sealing interception, again last weekend, one of many he's secured this season, is another great player. I mean, they've managed to just stack this thing at all three levels.
I heard, sorry to cut across you, Conor, but I heard an evaluation of this defense. It was earlier this evening, and said the strength of this Texas defense is their speed at corner, safety, nickel, the speed of the linebackers, and their ability to generate a pass rush. Yeah. And I was like, what else is there? Yeah. What else is there?
Yeah, like, to your point, I heard Troy Aikman in commentary. I thought it was lovely, and I know we were laughing about it the other day, saying, boy, they don't like to fool you. They're just coming after you. Like there's no misdirection. It's like, no, we're really fast, we're really mean, and we're going to tear your head off. And they're exciting to watch on defense. It's a team performing at that kind of level with that kind of fast twitch, that kind of aggression, that ability to get pressure on. And I slightly fear, and I know he got some heat on social media, despite the fact that he's had a really good rookie season overall. And you kind of forget that he is a rookie. Will Campbell at left tackle gave up 5 pressures last weekend. You better believe that the Texans are going to be piling as much pressure on him as they can. But players of his caliber who are recruited that high and drafted that high are expected to respond. And that's one key battle to watch this weekend. I think you can be lazy and, as I was doing for most of the week, lean into the old adage that defense wins championships. Only defense doesn't win championships. Your defense certainly sets the floor and keeps you in the game. The only way to win championships is to have an offense that's good enough to get you over the line, to pull you from behind when you need to throw in obvious passing situations, to succeed when the pressure's on you, which it inevitably will be in the playoffs, where everything gets tight and you're not going to jump out to 2 or 3 possession leads and cruise down the stretch and be able to run the ball and be conservative. Eventually, the tide is going to go out and we're going to see who's been swimming naked. And the Texans have been swimming naked for a good bit of this season. They came away with a 30-6 win in Acrisure Stadium. I think that's one of those playoff wins that I look at and I go, that's because of the caliber of the team you were playing. No disrespect to the Steelers, but I think they're probably on balance the worst team that made the playoffs this year. They were the make weight in the AFC. They slid in the 7th seed and they found their level, which was they exited very quickly. I think 30 points flattered the Texans, but I think 6 points at times flattered the Steelers. So as good as this Texans defense is, I would worry about the offense's ability. If they couldn't pull away in a game like that and they end up with 2 defensive touchdowns to pad the score there, their offense didn't shoot the lights out and hasn't been shooting the lights out. And in this form, don't trust them. It's not like I'm not looking at the players and looking at Nico Collins and looking at CJ Stroud and looking at what the running backs can occasionally do when they get up ahead of steam and thinking, yeah, on a good day with the fair wind behind them, if I squint, I can see them becoming the best version of themselves. We just haven't seen that yet. And if they haven't been able to do it yet, like, the divisional round will be a great time to get all that right. But it's a long way to climb, to me, to get to that position. I don't know quite what it is that's not working, but we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago, where it's mad to think that you're now looking at CJ Stroud being the reason that the Texans won't progress, because he's just not delivering at the level that he was certainly in his rookie season, but at times in his second season too. That said, they've won a playoff game for the third season in a row. This is a team who knows how to compete. They're almost like the anti-Steelers. Like, they were able to go and win playoff games despite, not having the talent. They've been adding talent the last couple of seasons, and they'll be frustrated. Kieran Boyle called them out rightly as a team that he thought would make the playoffs and could make a deep run this year. And yet the level of their play, to me, is less than the sum of the overall parts, not defensively, but offensively. And I think it's the Patriots actually that I trust more. I think winning the playoff game last week gets a big monkey off New England's back. You don't want to have justified all the naysayers by going through like a knife through butter the weakest schedule in the NFL this season, getting to the playoffs, going one and done, and everybody says, yeah, you were frauds. You're not as good as we thought you were. They showed up in a big way, as you said, Kieran, against the Chargers. They did what had to be done. They limited Justin Herbert, and I trust them to perform, because what they've been doing all season is they've been graded in the sum of their parts, and I actually trust them in this spot. I trust the culture that Vrabel has, and right now, they, to me, are performing at a higher level overall than the Texans are, and I don't see the Texans coming in and bullying them. I do see New England getting out the top in what could be the best and closest game of the weekend.
Who has the hottest streak in the NFL right now? Houston Texans. 9 wins in a row. No one else in the playoffs, I believe, has that level of record. We're going to be talking down a team that defensively stand there defense over the course of beating the Bills, beat the Chargers a few weeks, same team that the Patriots took care of last week, not in a very comprehensive manner compared to what we've seen over the course of the season. I had the pleasure of Carmen Vitelli earlier on this evening, who you would have interviewed last year, Connor. Lovely, and she spoke glowingly about, I suppose she was objecting what you said. She just genuinely believed that you actually can win playoff games, and you can win titles predominantly on your defense, and your defense puts you in a position that you don't necessarily have to play 4 quarters of offense. You just need to do enough to have enough cohesion to keep yourself in the game, and you'll find a way in the fourth quarter. This team scored 2 defensive
flip back through the list of Super Bowl champions for the 10 years and tell me the last team that won without having a high-powered offense.
New York Giants twice, maybe, against the Patriots. We're defensively.
So we're literally going back. We're literally going back to the last decade. That's more than 10 years.
Patriots against the Rams in 2010. What was that score? I scored in the 13-3 against a high-flying Rams offense and Belichick's scheme to take. All they
had was Tom Brady
and Grant.
Broncos won the Super Bowl against the Panthers. Was that 2006?
Okay, all they had was Peyton Manning. Yeah, go on. Anyway.
Okay, there's enough examples there.
Peyton Manning's worst ever season. To your that's probably
okay. I'm not necessarily saying the Texans are going to go all the way. I just look at this game and I think it's evenly matched and it's reflective of the odds that QuinnBet have. In fact, that for large parts of the week it was -2.5. It's 3. It's moved slightly. It's 3.5. So the fact that it's sitting at that, for me, I actually felt this would be more of a 6.5, 7 point game. Bearing in mind how well the Patriots have played at home over the course of the season, they've lost 2 games at home. Week 1 you'd write off against the Raiders because week 1 is a crazy week in itself, and the Bills, and never know. We might even get an AFC East championship game next week. I am leaning Texans. I am going to go with the Texans to find a way to pull it out because I genuinely believe D'Amico Ryans goes into this, and I know it's showing the fact that Vrabel has come from the AFC South, so there's a bit of a needle as well. Bearing in mind Vrabel was a coach in that division for quite some time. I know D'Amico Ryans wasn't necessarily there, but I think what we've seen over the course of the last 2 months is this team are floating under the radar despite the winning. And I think CJ Stroud will have a rebound game. In fact, I know Nico Collins has been ruled out, but I am going to go with him. And a shout out to Gary from the Houston Texans Ireland page, who dropped this off to see once I'm on the Irish NFL show and I don't wear other teams' jerseys like other people on this show. Not necessarily used to. I do have a Texans jersey here, so I'm going for the Texans to upset the odds. I will be in Greco Studios to see poor Shane's face on Sunday evening. as the Texans advance to the championship game. It's the Houston Texans to cause the
share
shot.
that in the members' register of interests and declare the bribe there so that he could secure the Texans pick. Good man, Gary. You knew how to put him in the pocket on that one. Fair play.
As long as CJ Stroud can stay in the pocket for the 4 quarters, Connor, I think they've got enough to get it over the line and advance to the AFC Championship game.
Right, it's Soldier Field where we close. It's the last game of the divisional round. It is a 20-12 kickoff on Sunday night as the Rams travel to face the Bears. The Rams are favourites in this one, right? The Rams are 3.5-point favourites on the road. Sorry, we've a slight mistake in the doc in front of me, but unlike Ron Burgundy, I don't just read everything that's in the auto cue. I am able to critically assess as I go. So it's the Rams who are favourites on the road here, Kieran. Thing that a lot of people in Chicago have been making a lot of over the past week is the weather. It's filthy. Matthew Stafford's record in cold weather games, despite the fact that he played in Detroit for the first half of his career, is up and down. It slightly worries me when people are looking for the climatic assist to try and win a game. But this one is very finely poised between a team that a lot of us felt was probably the most complete in the NFL and a team that is very flawed, but has somehow found ways to win in the most exciting and dramatic fashion.
Yeah, and I didn't have time, and I didn't get to write too many notes on this game before we came on tonight. And the first thing I wrote was key factor is the weather. The second thing I wrote down, and I got to give you a bit of credit here, Connor, in your evaluation of this game during the week on the live show, you mentioned you referenced belief, and belief being a powerful weapon in this for any team, and this Bears team, you rightly pointed out, I don't think anyone believes in themselves as much as this Bears team this season, and to go in at halftime against the Packers last week, even though the Packers have had form in giving up big leads, and more than one occasion this season, and to come out and play as if they had absolutely no doubt that they would be back in that game. It's frightening when you play against an opponent that just fails to lie down and fails to die like that. The third thing I would reference is the Rams and how we haven't seen what we expected to see even last week when the Rams went out and they scored 14 points and we said, oh, this is put to bed. And they didn't, they didn't put the game to bed, just like the Packers last week. So the Bears will look back at that game and say, it doesn't matter, what happens in the first quarter, what happens in the second quarter, we're going to finish strong here. Caleb Williams has been is emphatic. I think as the season has as the season has progressed, I think people have started to show more and more belief in him. He believes in himself more. He's got an absolute weapon in Coastal Loveland. And this team, for all its limitations on defense and how they can be got at, they just won't go away and they won't die. But I mentioned that the defense and how it can be got at. What team is better set up to get at that Bears defense than this Rams offense if we see the best version of them. And if they can get over the weather, and I mean, Matthew Stafford has plenty of experience of going to Chicago and playing in cold weather. It should not hurt his belief or his mental ability to go out and have a good game. Davante Adams has plenty of experience going out and playing in Chicago as well. And he still has retained part ownership of the Bears as well. I think he might still have his shares. So if the Rams show up, and if they show up as the complete version of what they can be, I trust. I'm sorry to reference the Packers again, but I trust Sean McVay in the big spots more than I suppose. Matt LaFleur has earned the belief to be able to finish out in these big spots. I trust Sean McVay and his coaching in these big games. I trust Matt Stafford to show up. It's whether the rest of them, Nakua, Davante Adams can get over those kind of drops, those kind of miscues, and Stafford included. And I think they will, and I think the Rams will get over the line. But the Bears will make them fight all the way for it.
Kind of like where I was when we were talking about the Packers game, right? I said at the time the Packers are the better team. The Packers are the team that you would expect to win if you played this game 99 times out of 100. And And the Rams should win this game, and I do think the Rams are the more complete team. And I take on board everything that you've said about that their performance level hasn't always justified that. There are weird flaws in this team, and they are the kind of flaws that often get you got in the playoffs, including their bizarrely unaddressed special teams play. They fired a special teams coach during the season because it wasn't good enough, and it's still kind of lingering there in the background, and it got them again in the Panthers and put them in a difficult situation. They did get themselves out of it because, to your point, they have Matthew Stafford and they have Devontae Adams and they have Puka Nacua and they have these, monster interchangeable tight ends, probably the best of whom is Tyler Higbee. They're famously adept at deploying this 13 personnel that Sean McVay loves to sprinkle in. Just when teams are tired, he sends out the big boys and looks for mismatches. One thing I love about this clash, by the way, is, and I think it's very interesting, we talked about it briefly on the show on Monday, how it's not just that Ben Johnson singled out the Packers as his big bad villain this season, it's that he singled out Matt LaFleur personally. I think Ben Johnson is hyper competitive and is very conscious of where he sits and where he feels he should sit in the realm of the offensive coaches and head coaches in the NFL. I think he deliberately targeted LaFleur as the guy that he wanted to be seen to best in the division. I have no doubt that he's looking at Sean McVay this weekend and thinking, it's showtime. Like, you put out the best that you can do, and I'm going to take this Rams defense apart. I'm going to give you more headaches, and I'm going to give Chris Shula more headaches than he's ever had in his life. And I think, to your point, the Bears are unbelievably well set up to do that. I think they're going to torture this Rams defense that set out at all costs to stop the run this season because of what happened to them at the hands of Saquon Barkley, when, to give the slight lie to the idea about cold weather not being the Rams' friend. I mean, they were within an ace of taking the Eagles out and changing the history that we saw unfold, where the Eagles went on to win the Lombardi, which is one of the reasons why at the start of the season a lot of us were saying, the Rams don't have that much further to go to get there, that they're going to run it back this year, and they're going to take some stopping, and that remains true. But that defense can be got at. I mean, the thing that has, and belief is one thing, and we can get into kind of remember the Titans, misty-eyed, they just find a way to win. They're all heart. It's not all heart, though. And I think that, you strip it back a little bit and you think one of the things that the Bears have done to get themselves back into games is they have made adjustments offensively and defensively. The Bears team that took to the field in the second half against the Packers last week was a different team. They were learning as they were going on. They got owned by the Packers in the first half, and they changed it up. They changed it up defensively. They changed it up offensively. You saw some lovely play calling in the second half as well, where Ben Johnson doesn't give all his best stuff in the first half. He's always keeping something in the tank. He has confidence that his team can get on a run, and that when they eventually start to see, and this is, again, referencing Jordan Rodriguez, against something that she talked about in the off seasons before we started off. She said, Ben Johnson will show you the same look 10, 11, 12, 15 times, waiting for the one time that you show the look that he wants to see, and then bam, he goes for the kill shot. And I referenced that because Ryan Poles talked about when he was looking for his quarterback and when the Bears were looking to draft, this is before they drafted Caleb Williams, and he said, from my evaluation of talent, there's two types of quarterback that win in the NFL. There's two types of elite quarterback play that you're looking for. You either want a surgeon or you want an assassin. Caleb Williams is an assassin. He is maddeningly inconsistent. His pass completion rate is the lowest among top quarterbacks in the NFL. In fact, I think it's the lowest among all 32 qualified starting quarterbacks in the NFL. But, you need to leave that aside for 1 second, and you need to look at what he can do when the chips are down. If Caleb Williams plays Call of Duty, you can bet all he takes is headshots. I bet he misses a lot of shots, but when he gets you, it's right between the eyes. That 4th and 8 throw to Roma Dunze last weekend against the Packers, it's the best pass I've seen in the NFL this season. I don't know how many quarterbacks can make that throw. What he can do in his athleticism is unreal. And it's the type of quarterback, we saw Jacoby Brissett do it for the Arizona Cardinals to the Rams, that the Rams actually have fits with. They don't like dealing with this kind of offense, and that is a complete mismatch to me. However, on the other side, like, the Rams offense could and should have a field day against that Bears defense. They're a bad defense. They're a talent-poor defense. They show up, they make adjustments. Dennis Allen is doing the best that he can. Montez Sweat had a much better game at the weekend than, previous outings that we've seen. But you take away Montez Sweat and you don't have a pass rush. You don't have a pass rush, and you have defensive backs that are not as fast as they need to be to keep pace with the Puka Nacua or with the Devontae Adams. And that scares the life out of me. It's not just that the Bears are being picked apart, it's that they're always being picked apart by the offense's best player. It's like they're not even making teams beat them with their plan B. You just need to keep hitting up plan A. And we were seeing it again with Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs last weekend. It just seemed like Jordan Love had whatever he wanted when he wanted it. And that scares me. And yeah, the Rams are prone to the odd kind of infuriating turnover, and the Bears will hope to prey on that. They lost, to your excellent point at the weekend, Kieran, they lost a turnover battle against the Packers and still managed to win the game. Like, a lot of things about that game just didn't make sense, and they only make sense, to your point, through the prism of the Bears' belief. So this game scares me, and I feel like it should end the Bears' season. And my head says you should pick the Rams, and my head says there's a reason why the Rams are favourites on the road and why the bookies are disregarding the weather as a factor in this game. But I don't want to pick with my head and be right. I'd rather pick with my heart, even if I'm wrong. Good, better, best. Never let it rest. Bears again.
Conor, my biggest concern for the Bears on Sunday is this continued situation where they're chasing games. And it's a fantastic story over the course of the season. And we spoke about Broncos in many ways, and the fact that you don't necessarily have to, and the Jags, with all due respect to the Jags, unfortunately, are gone there. But like, you don't necessarily have to be winning in a competitive manner every week. And in fact, sometimes these great comebacks only lead to the momentum, the locker room enjoyment that we watch all throughout the course of the season, across the league in general, in terms of head coaches and this continuous Ben Johnson piece we see in the dressing rooms. In particular, the last few weeks has been heightened by the fact that they've beaten the Packers twice, and obviously he's made it clear around what his thoughts are on the Packers. Sorry, Kieran, and obviously the rivalry that's come with it. But if they get into a situation where they're chasing the game in the second half, this Rams defense for me is one of the most underrated in the league. We've seen time and time again where they do go through these little dubious spots that, their defense gets them out of a hole. We saw that Eagles game last year. You talk about Veras, what a game. Remember the crowd giving him so much jib on the sideline, and he, despite the loss, he was the best player on the field by a country mile. And my concern is if we find ourselves in that situation, can the Bears overcome it again? But I have a different feel about it in terms of I actually don't think the Bears are going to be putting themselves in a situation. I think they can go in and handle this environment and the weather better than this Rams team. And yes, I get where you're coming from in terms of the Bears defense is shaky at best, and the Rams will do damage on them. The Rams will do damage if they're allowed to damage in terms of having to get a controlled run game. Devontae Adams is not playing at the level which you saw in the season. He's clearly carrying an injury. They're reliant on Puka. Their run game is patchy at the moment. I don't think it's been as effective as we've seen earlier on the season when Williams and Corum were getting up to speed. And that's what they're going to rely on. They're going to have a balanced offense and allow Matthew Stafford to do damage. I am leaning Bears. I think it's the wonderful story of Chicago Bears continues. And I think the Bears come out the right side of it on Sunday, which would then set up a Seahawks Bears championship game, which means two people within their structure and have their team in the championship game, and maybe even three if Shane gets the right side of it at the weekend, which we never would have believed at the start of the season. So it's a Bears victory for me on Sunday. I think the Bears come out and keep this beautiful storyline continue. Bears.
Oh, so it is 1, 2, 3. Bears on 3 for us this evening. That is the final game of the divisional round. A great weekend of football. Enjoy it wherever you're watching it. We will be watching it from Gracco Studios, as we said. We're really looking forward to that. Please watch along with us on the Irish NFL Show.